This is not a video for the faint-hearted. This is a video for people who would like to know how to update the NHL algorithm. We're going to go through the process in depth, discuss all the different sheets and all the little ins and outs that you need to do. This is a great day to do it here. This is about the second or third day that I've attempted to do it. So there are a lot of different adjustments that you're going to have to make, and you're going to learn a lot of things about how the file works together and what you might need to override and what you don't need to override. But it's a very technical video. So if you're just interested in trying to see what the algorithm says for projections for the day here on Monday, October 16th, you're going to want to fast forward to the end. But if you purchased a copy of this and you want to know how to update it, even though I'm sending copies of this file every day from now until October 31st, because there's a lot of work I need to do on it every day, with part of the $150 subscription, if you want to purchase that subscription, you'll see why I have to do a lot of work every day to it. But after that, it does get a little bit easier. So let's go through all the things that you need to know about this file and what you need to update. And let's start right now. So if you think about what's happening here, there's so many different pieces of information that we're combining together. And we need to make sure that that information is accurate and that it's current. So the first thing we can start out with is the odds sheet. All right, we're in the daily odds sheet. And one thing that happens here is that up here, you can see that there's this different color change in this area of the file. This is yellow and this is black. The stuff that's black ends up being a formula. And the stuff that's yellow is a static value, meaning I've taken the formulas and I've changed the formulas to just values, because that's something that you want to do with this, but you're going to see that you're going to want to do that after you do something else. So the first thing I always do for the new day is that we're going to bring these formulas up over here in columns N through R, and we're going to make this formulas again. All right, so this should all be black right here, starting in row 2. So that's the first thing we do when it comes to odds. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to update 2 of the different queries that we run, and we're going to change the date that these queries are pulling. Okay, so let's go to, we could refresh all the queries, but we're going to go into queries and connections. So there's 2 different queries that have to be updated for the current day. One is the NHL games query, and the other is the starting goals query. So we go into NHL games. We're going to right click in here. We're going to edit this query. And the Power Query Editor opens up. And you'll see that as it opens up, you're going to click Source right here under the Applied Steps. You're going to go into Source. And up at the top right here, it may be difficult to see on your screen, but the very end of this formula string up here is the date that you want to query. And it's set on October 15th. We just want to change this to 16th because that's the new day we want to query the odds for the games. Press Enter. All of a sudden, that's going to start populating. Go down to Expanded Column. It's going to show you that you're now pulling information. Null. Interesting. We'll see if that works. We're going to close and load after we do that. And we're going to find out if it works. Yep. Now, all of a sudden, we have the NHL games odds for the day of the 16th. Now, it's going to be important that you do this before these games start, because if the games have already started, these odds are not going to show up. They're going to be removed from RotoWire as soon as the game starts. So if you aren't able to update this before the game start of the day, you're going to have to put them in manually. Well, what happens now that we've done that is that in our daily odds sheet, you're going to see that they've already populated themselves right here. They've done what they need to do, and they're now here. So guess what we're going to do now is we're going to freeze this information. We're going to turn it into values. Copy this information and paste as values. And see, it turns yellow. The reason why we do this is that if we run all the queries again later in the day, after these games have started, we would lose some of this information because it'll disappear because the games have started, but we don't want to lose it. We want to keep these odds in here for the rest of the day. So that's why we turn this stuff into values. So now we've updated the odds section. Great. Next one, starting goalies. We need to edit the starting goalie query. edit. Same thing, where when it opens up, we're going to go to the source, and we're going to change the date to the 16th. Source, up here, change that date to the 16th or whatever day you would like to query. Press enter. Go back down to expanded column value and close and load. And voila, great. We now have starting goalies. So those are the only two queries that you actually need to do anything and change anything on every day. The rest of them are going to run automatically. So now you go to data and you go refresh all. And all the other queries, the player stats, the goalie stats, and the odds and everything are also going to refresh. Everything is just going to, all the queries are going to refresh. And it's running down here at the bottom. And now it's done. So now let's check and see what it did. The injury report, that one also updated. All this updated. Injury report updated, this query updated. The odds updated again, even though we had just run it before manually. The goalies just updated again. Goalie stats. So here's a weird thing that happens. As the goalie stats and the player stats table, this table updates, for some reason, it starts to generate an error when there are new records. In order to fix this error, you just highlight two of these rows and just paste down and it's going to fix. You don't want to have any errors next to the names. For some reason, it does that when the table opens up. So that's a little manual thing you have to do is just you need to paste down. You'll see we need to do the same thing on the skater sheet. So we just did it in the goalie stat sheet. You'll see on the skater sheet, here we go. We have errors right here. You just grab two of these rows and you just autofill down. It fixes that error. Okay, great. We've done that. Now what? Well, now we have player stats, and some of these players are going to have played their first game. As you can see, if they have, they're not in our matrix yet. So this is something that you can check this every day, but in the beginning of the season, we're going to have a lot of people we need to add. How do we know who we need to add and how do we add them? If we sort streamline names, descending, you'll see that all these people have errors. There's an error right here. That means all of these people needed to be added to our matrix. It was probably their first game. So we're going to copy their information, their player name, their team, and their position. And we're going to go into the matrix and we are going to paste them as values right here. And we're going to add their names to the streamline name column, which is right here. And we've now added all of those people to our matrix. So we now have all the new players that have played games this season in here. And you can see that now they're not errors here in this streamline name area. Now they're working fine. Okay. So we can resort. And you'll see that we have a streamline name for every single player, which means that they're all in the database. And if they have injuries or whatever their stats are, we're now recording them properly. We don't see any errors here in column B. And that's just recording new players. We scroll all the way down, just double checking. Yep, no errors. The errors start after there are no more people. Okay, so we've just added all players. What about goalies? Goalies are going to come in and have some of their first starts. Now, I'm going to get rid of some stuff down here because I added some goalies in manually for yesterday. You generally are not going to need to do that, but at the beginning of the season, you might. Are there any errors here? The answer is no. No errors. So all the goalies we had in our list already. That makes sense. So that means the goalies that are starting today have already played at least a game this season. I'm looking for any errors right here. If there were any errors in this column, we would then add those goalies to the bottom of the matrix. But it doesn't look like we have any errors on goaltenders. All right, so that's good. So our goalies have been added. What's the next thing we need to do? We're almost done, believe it or not. We need to go to the standing sheet. So the standing sheet, this is one where you need to manually paste the new standings in here. I already clicked that link. It shows up right here. This is pro reference. You probably have to allow ads. in order to see this. Sometimes they ask that you turn ad blocker off. You're going to copy this information right here. Go down all the way to the right to the 0, highlight the mouse over the 0, copy, and go back to our table, and you can paste it right here as match destination formatting. And now we've just pasted in the new standings. So we are almost done. So we've got standings in, all of our queries are updated. We updated our odds. So now let's go to our odds sheet real quick. So what have we got going on? Couple things. First of all, we're looking at our odds sheet and I see some errors. So what's happening here is that we have a layout of our games for the day, but we have some problems, meaning we have goalie strength numbers that are errors for certain people. That's because these goalies have not started yet. That would be James Reimer, Connor Ingram, Joseph Wall, and Darcy Kemper for my Capitals. These 4 goalies need to be manually added to our G-Stats sheet. So this is where we have to do some actual manual entry work, and that stinks because we're going to be guessing at goalie percentages for these goalies, and unfortunately, that's not what we want to do. But we're doing that right now. So we paste those goalies' names in here. I hate doing this because this is not what the algorithm is supposed to do. We're not supposed to be guessing at this. We put in their team abbreviation, Washington. Let's see, which teams are these players on? Reimer's on Detroit. Connor Ingram is on Arizona. But Arizona for Connor Ingram. Joseph Wall is on Toronto. So we brought in their teams. We have no stats for them. We're not going to use last year's stats because they're just going to have stats after this game tomorrow. So we're not even going to worry about it. We need to override a C-score for them. We're going to give everybody 0.6, which is the average goalie C-score is 60%. So we are manually making this change, and now this is going to work. Generally, you will not have to do this. Generally, it will not be a goalie who's had his first start of the season. There usually will be some stats in here, but this is what you have to do early in the season. And it leads to poorer predictions, which is why the NHL algorithm does not work great early on. And this is why I offer a subscription, is you have to make these manual adjustments super early in the season. So now let's go back. And it looks like, why do they not have a rating? You look up J2. Oh, because we also need to add those goalies to the matrix, everybody. We don't have them in the matrix. So let's go add them to the matrix. These are goaltenders. And we put their name here, and that will probably work. And now, yes, now they have their rating in here appropriately. So now we're ready to go. We take this information right here. We copy it. This is from column C to J, and now we go into the cube. And we paste this right here in our first available slot in the cube. And we paste the date down here, which is the 16th. And Washington is predicted to score negative 0.2 goals today. That's how bad it is for Washington. Guess what? We're done. We refresh. We go into our results pivot, and voila, we now have predictions for the day. And they're not perfect, obviously, because it's the beginning of the season, and we just guessed at a lot of goaltender stats. So that's how you get here. Now, what is everything saying in this results pivot sheet? I want to go through each one of these columns so you kind of understand what it's presenting. You've got a game number, which helps to identify which game we're looking at of the season and what we've recorded. We have a date and time for the game. We have who's away and who's home. The away team is supposed to show up on top. We have the team name. We have the goalie that is supposed to start. If you run this query again and the goaltenders change, you need to recopy and repaste this into the cube to get it accurate. I have not connected this. You can connect it, but you generally don't want to. If you refresh, you want to also run and recopy this and put this from the daily odds sheet back into the cube. That's what you want to do. This is their goalie status, right? Who's confirmed, who's expected, does matter. Goaltenders matter a lot. This is going to tell you whether or not you won the game based on what the adjusted power was. This goalie amp factor matters for scoring. I won't even get into that today. Goalie ranking percentage. Remember, we manually put in these 0.6s for Arizona, for Reimer, for Ingram, for Joseph Wall, for Darcy Kemper. We don't know how they're going to play this year. They haven't played at all yet. So we put that in there. The money line. It's coming from the odds. The adjusted power and the projected score and the power projected score. So the adjusted power is the raw comparison between the two teams. Generally, this is the best guide to who's supposed to win this game. It's even better than the projected score. The team with the better adjusted power is supposed to win. So the algorithm is favoring Detroit, New Jersey, the Rangers, barely Toronto over Chicago, and definitely Calgary over Washington today. The projected scores and the power projected scores are taking into account other information about streaks, okay, which is why you have to have the complete history of the season in here, because it's looking at streaks. Like Columbus apparently has not won a game this season. Florida has not won a game this season. Washington has not won a game this season. That shows you over the last 15, 30, 45, and 60 days, the comparison of what their win percentage was. And it tries to weight the teams that are playing better in the last 15 compared to the last 40, compared to the last 35. That's what this does here. And it ends up giving you this power projected score so that the score of the game is supposed to be kind of a range between these two. So it's like Detroit is supposed to win put up between 5 and 8 goals against Columbus, and Columbus scores between like 4 and 2 goals. That's what these numbers are supposed to mean. The power projected score is also really skewed this early in the season because we hardly have any stats in here. So everyone's win score percentage is really distorted because they only played 1, 2, or 3 games. So this is kind of all out of whack early in the season. But as we get more than a few weeks into the season and get into November, it starts to look a lot more reasonable. So that's what's going on here, everybody. That was the update video. I went through every sheet and what we have to do. There is not a sheet that I missed. Players pivot sheet, you can refresh. For those of you who use this for fantasy, you can start to open this up and see the players and how we are rating them and their position. So that's pretty cool if you want to use this for fantasy. We did standings, we did matrix. Our results pivot is where we look at the scores. You know, you'll be able to look at previous days. You can see that we went 1-1 yesterday based on adjusted power. We had Ottawa winning, even though the projected score yesterday was Tampa Bay 5-4. That's what it said. It changed today because they lost. But the adjusted power was still in favor of Ottawa yesterday. So it calls it a win because it looks at the adjusted power when it figures out whether or not it won the game. That's what it's doing. So that's the look for today. That's the update video. You can subscribe for the rest of October and get an email from me every day as we continue to make this better. It's $150. I will offer just one copy of this file after the month of October for about, I would say probably about like $75. I think is what I'm going to charge for the one-time copy. But until then, I need to be updating it every day. And you can see there's a lot of work, especially with the matrix and goaltenders, that has to be done. So I don't want to give you just a one-time copy until the month is up, because there's a lot of changes that are manual, and I don't want to have to deal with all your questions about how to update it early on in the season as we're adjusting things. So that's what's going on. Good luck, everybody. Enjoy hockey. Caps, please, you guys need to win. We'll see. I'm not going to the game tonight, and probably shouldn't, but because it's probably not going to be good. But hopefully the Caps play better than they did against Pittsburgh last week, but we'll find out. All right, good luck, everyone. May all your picks be winning.